A live exercise here to get this right. We some discussion about China and what they knew and when they knew it, and I've been very critical. We need to know immediately. The world is entitled to know. The Chinese government was the first to know of this risk to the world, and that puts a special obligation to make sure that data gets to our scientists, our professionals. This is not about retribution. This matters going forward. We're in a live exercise here to get this right. We some discussion about China and what they knew and when they knew it, and I've been very critical.
You've tuned in to Stranger Than Fiction News, broadcasting live from the dark side of the planet. Is it real world or is it exercise? It looks like it's a live exercise, part of Project Zypher, part of Crimson Contagion. You know they wanted to name this Crimson Tide, but that was already taken. Check this out, October 2019, right around the suspected launch date of Halloween of this virus. Crimson Contagion, 2019 functional exercise, a top secret report that was leaked by the New York Times. Looks like they're a little concerned out there in New York, and the numbers are exploding over there because they're actually testing. Ladies and gentlemen, they've done 30,000 tests out there. 10,000 are positive. That's 1 in 3 so far, and it's probably much worse than that. Ladies and gentlemen, we'll get into all of the latest news, plus this bombshell revelation from the White House. Live exercise. It gets better and better during these press conferences. Of course, you probably saw some of the news as far as the president beating up reporters live on air. That's another story. We're getting quite a few reports about first responders not having the proper equipment. Well, say it ain't so in Fargo, bitches. My hometown. Look at that. They got the space suits. They must have been watching the broadcast. At least you hope they do. Out there, they got the spacesuits going on, ready for patrol. The Klan is back. Check this out. I mean, when you first look at this, it's like, hey, he's got a white hoodie. Look at that. Here, put this on. Let's go scare the citizens. You know, I often feel like an astronaut on the planet Tard when I go out there in the real world looking at the sheeple. And, you know, I need a suit like this. I need to get up like this. It would complete the, you know, the image in my mind. How's everybody doing out there? We're hacking the Matrix. Fargo's ready. Are you bitches ready out there? Look at that, Fargo Police Department. We saw this in our local paper. We're like, oh, we got to share this with the world. Ladies and gentlemen, they're prepared. But, you know, it's a different story in Europe. We've been looking at, you know, the evolution in different countries since the beginning of this outbreak. And in France, they don't even have masks for, you know, first responders and the like. They've been telling the people you don't need a mask, just wash your hands, because they don't have enough masks and they don't want there to be a riot at the pharmacies or, you know, wherever masks might be sold. So that's a very interesting perspective, and we're actually hearing reports that many of them are refusing to work under these conditions without the proper material. Now, we're also learning from the press conferences, from the White House press conferences, that, you know, they've known since the beginning of January, at the very latest, probably sometime in, you know, December, November. But they've had 3 months to ramp up, to prepare, to, you know, slow things down. And people that have been watching this broadcast since the lockdown in Wuhan are well aware of that recommendation. But they didn't do any of that. Instead, they're like, oh, this is perfect. Our response is perfect. It was broken before and we fixed it. Oh, they fixed it. Ladies and gentlemen, they fixed it. Crimson Contagion. This is a bombshell revelation, because usually when there's a Gladio B event, guess what's there? an exercise, and it goes real world. And then what do we got? Hold on, we got to play the clip again.
We need to know immediately. The world is entitled to know. The Chinese government was the first to know of this risk to the world. And that puts a special obligation to make sure that data gets to our scientists, our professionals. This is not about retribution. This matters going forward. We're in a live exercise here to get this right. We're in a live exercise here to get this right.
And you can hear Trump, like, start talking as soon as he says live exercise. Like, what did you say? I think Pompeo wants the world to know that we've been fucked. And
we're in a live exercise here to get this right.
But, Trump just a couple days ago was like, oh, we shut everything down. The flights coming in from China ahead of schedule. Check out our video archives for that one. Plus, the other things, if you've been paying attention to Project Zephyr again, as well as the genocide of the Kurds, the Gladio B events in Syria and Iran, the deployment of 5G in everybody's neighborhood, as well as just letting all of these other eugenics programs continue on, the fluoride, the GMOs, the vaccines, the chemtrails, etc., etc. You can tell them by their fruits, ladies and gentlemen. You can tell them by their fruits. We've also got, we've got a real disturbing video. Hang in there. It gets worse, so much worse. We got to find it. Where did the video guy put it? Oh, good luck finding it in this catastrophe, ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah, there's just not enough time to kind of dwell on the fact that so many people are dying. It's just an endless stream of people coming in. As soon as we have a free bed, we have a new patient coming in who needs critical care. Once we get a patient in the ICU, I haven't seen any yet being weaned off the ventilator. So it's been a couple of weeks now. The patients we've had for the longest, nearly 20 days we've had, and all of them still depend on mechanic ventilation. Now we have people in their 50s. So most of our patients are in their 50s. There's just been a build-up of dead people. Yeah, there are burials about every 30 minutes now in the cemetery of Bergamo.
So that was a male nurse reporting from Bergamo, which is like the Wuhan of Italy. And, the scenes are beyond imagination. Endless dead bodies everywhere. They've stopped counting, they say. In many European countries, they've just stopped testing. There's no point in it. Everybody's infected. The question is, what is the cure to this Fukushima, Chernobyl that's going on in everybody's town right now? And will it ever go away? And, we've covered this in previous broadcasts. At this stage, there's nothing that has changed. And the focus right now is really on disease management. Prevention is pretty much out the window. They've made sure of that by giving people a false sense of security, like it was going to be okay, like it wasn't going to come here, like it was contained, like it was a hoax. And so they didn't let people get supplies. They didn't ramp up on masks or ventilators. They didn't build additional hospitals for a surge. They didn't make sure their tests actually worked and were deployed. They didn't do anything to prepare. And supposedly, the conclusions of this exercise were exactly what we're seeing right now. And you can imagine, how that would be the case, since it was pretty much a couple months before this officially took off. But, we've been suspecting that perhaps the first cases were infected mid-November, and maybe even before, and chances are, knowing this cult of death, that this virus was released on Halloween. You know what I mean? That's how these people operate. And what do we see? October 2019, Crimson Contagion. A few months before that, splashed on YouTube was the Project Zephyr and Project Pogo documents. And while that, was rather mysterious, it certainly turned out to be very true. Scary, in fact, in terms of white vans going out there picking up people. It's exactly what we saw in China. And, they're talking about EMP blasts and the like. So the worst is yet to come, to say the least. And let's get into some of the news, shall we? Ladies and gentlemen, Dow tumbles 900 points to end the worst week since 2008. It probably looks scarier than the recession of 2008 out there, ladies and gentlemen. And, the day started off pretty nice, plus 100, plus 200, plus 300. Looked like they were going to finish off the week on a positive note. And all of a sudden, it's just like, reality is setting in once again. This thing isn't ever going away. And that's just the beginning of the nightmare. Obviously the personal tragedies are going to add up. But overall, the system is going to collapse. Factories aren't going to be able to sustain, their previous levels. And everything is going to be, running at a much slower pace. And there's going to be huge breaks in the supply chains. There already are. And, 1 in 10 people, if not 1 in 5 people, have already lost their jobs due to this virus. And this is just going to continue to domino and to spiral out of control. But we wouldn't be seeing scenes like, the ones we've been seeing at the grocery stores had they let people prepare, had they let the factories know, you better start working overtime. We need to build new warehouses. We need to build new hospitals. It's like knowing a major flood is coming and they do nothing. It's criminal. It's criminal. And, they can blame the Chinese, and I think there's plenty of blame there, obviously. But, these people did everything they could to screw over the average American. They didn't want people preparing. They didn't want people to know. And they didn't put the supplies in place, so it's kind of like, they've done everything they could to sabotage the country, to sabotage, the whole system. And you just have to wonder who these people are really working for, ladies and gentlemen. USA cases of COVID surpassed 15,000 as California and New York begin full lockdowns. What a change in New York. They yesterday the governor out there was like, "Oh, we're never going to lock things down. If they and I'll tell you why we're never going to lock things down, because I would have to be the one that authorizes it." That's what he said yesterday. And today he's like, "I'm locking everything down." So, as forecasted, things are going to continue to get worse and worse and worse. And every once in a while, they're going to throw a curveball and they're going to be like, "Oh, look, it looks better today." But, you're just going to find out it keeps getting worse and worse and worse. And now it looks like, the numbers are going to double every week or so. And perhaps even much more than that as far as the official transcript goes. Looks like military deployment in Morocco. That's Africa. That's like summertime, right? So it's a state of emergency in the summertime. This thing isn't going away. I wonder where we can get something like this. And everybody needs a real compact kind of submachine gun for close quarter combat, as well as a long rifle, DC sniper kind of thing. Get your gear set up for the goon squads that are coming. New Jersey governor says New Jersey will tighten the screws. We're starting to hear that more and more. At first they were wartime presidents, wartime governors, and now they're all tightening the screws because people aren't complying with the orders. And if they were serious about, helping people, they would have done that 2 or 3 months ago. This isn't about helping people. This is about, rolling out the final solution. So beware of that. Understand what's really going on versus what they're trying to sell you. China declares no new infections, yet we're seeing Still, hospitals full, long lines, people trying to get in, videos of people, dropping dead in the factories. So the situation, isn't getting better. It's like, the world has become a ticking time bomb. And you just have to wonder what's going to happen first. This is a very interesting video from RT France. It's in French, unfortunately. But it calls out the health minister that resigned abruptly in the middle of the outbreak, and the French president for hiding the truth. And supposedly, the former health secretary had some kind of breakdown and started blabbing, confessing to the media that she knew in January that this was going to come in like a tidal wave, and she wrote an email to the president, but the president wouldn't listen. So she's trying to cover her ass. But it's come out like they knew they did nothing. And what we're hearing from, the French police forces is that, they don't have the mask. They don't want to go out there and do the checkpoints because they could be, spreading it to everybody. They got to touch, the driver's licenses and the registrations and the permits and the like. And so it's just, it's a very dangerous situation. This is obviously airborne. It's an airborne virus. Everybody knows that. And, they don't have the masks for people, not for the citizens, not for the first responders, not for the doctors, the nurses, nobody. It's just like they're all gone. They sent them all to China and now they're all gone. And it gets worse because we're learning in 2016, just like in America, they basically, did everything they could to liquidate the stocks, to not reorder, to just let it, get to a point where, the whole country would be screwed if a bioweapon was released. And here it is, Murphy's Law, right? So we'll get back into that, but that's, some interesting revelations. In different countries, people are starting to wake up and they're starting to understand how screwed they've been by their government. And in every country, it's the same way. I mean, we listen to press conferences in, numerous languages, and they're all the, public health officials are just like sneering and laughing, at the camera, like, good luck out there, seriously. And it's like this across the board. They're all wartime presidents. They're all, declaring states of emergencies. Here come the goon squads, and they're doing everything they can to liquidate, and so everybody should understand how dire the situation is. Now, in Australia, which co-authored the Smoking Gun paper that's in the video description that talks about this Wuhan supervirus being a SARS-like coronavirus mixed in with HIV. And they're like, hey, we found the combo that works 100% of the time, they say. And it's not just hydroxychloroquine, but it's also Kaletra in combination, a 1-2 punch. And it's funny because yesterday we were hearing that this Kaletra combination, all by itself, which is actually 2 drugs, didn't work. But with the hydroxychloroquine, the Australians say it does work. And they're so sure they're sending it to all 50 hospitals in Australia. So here we've got something on the radar. We've got a combo that seems to work, and the like. Secret trials. Again, we're getting lots of reports, even from the president, which makes you wonder if he didn't get some, and now he's feeling a whole lot better, and he's like, oh yeah, this stuff works. So that's certainly a possibility there. What else we got in the video section? Do we have anything in the video section? Beware of these types of people. Check out the micro expressions on this one. You know what I mean? 1 second she's smiling at you, and then the next second you can see the demon in her face. And you got to pay attention to when people show you who they are. You know what I mean? It comes and it goes. But once you see it, never forget it. Continuing on with the news, Italy sends the army in. So you see how it's escalated. It's gone from the full lockdown. Here comes the army. The numbers are through the roof. But truth be told, everybody's been infected. The question is, what is making this disease worse? What's making it go faster versus what's making it go slower? You know, we can talk about drug combinations. We can talk about nutraceuticals. And we've listed, you know, quite a few of them in the video description that you should really try and find, especially if you're feeling heavily impacted by this disease. Again, it's like airborne AIDS, and it's just always going to stay. People are going to get reinfected, and a high dose, even while you're infected, a new dose can kill you. So you got to be mindful. That's why you're seeing reports of entire households being wiped out, because the community virus load in that house, the air that they're breathing in, is so full of virus that it just, you know, super infects the individual. So you need to air out. Fresh air is your best friend. Avoid all lung irritants, all organic volatile compounds. That's perfumes, detergents, anything with an odor that's unnatural and synthetic. So scented candles, incense, you name it. Be a super freak when it comes to fresh air and no scent. So anyways, yeah, the army's coming in, then comes the liquidation. So, you know, right now they're preparing people for a huge window of 8 to 12 weeks before things get better. That's 8 to 12 weeks of liquidation. That's coming. The Hunger Games are coming. Prepare out there. Prepare for the last stand. Here's a scene from London. What a bunch of useful idiots, they say. Quote, by reducing services, you are putting more people at risk. They're especially talking about the subway. Less trains means, you know, more density per train. The tweet says that the London mayor forced coughing commuters into packed, you know, carriages. And so, yeah, you know, one person in a train like this can infect the whole lot. So, coronavirus in New York, Cuomo orders lockdown, full lockdown, and pretty much, I mean, all businesses are locked down. Then will come the, you know, you can only go outside every couple days, every 5 days, every week, once a week, once every 2 weeks. Then supplies are gone. And supplies are already pretty much gone in these cities. If things are so well, you know, doing so well, where are all the supplies? Again, the crimson contagion is something to look at. Here's an interesting quote. Our thoughts continue to be with the victims of the Chinese coronavirus, which started in China, was covered up for over a month by the Chinese government, and spread around the world because of the Chinese government. And that's, you know, only half true, because we let it in. So who let the snake in, ladies and gentlemen? Over and over again. I mean, America was gang raped by, you know, these planes coming in from Wuhan at the height of the epidemic. Just gang rape, no astroglide, just brutal, you know. And they kept coming on television like, oh, you know, it's the election, come to our rallies, you know, everything's awesome. Are you tired of winning yet? It's perfect, it's perfect. Crimson Contagion. Full PDF of the report right there. It's a mirror image of what's going on right now. It's the exercise version of what's gone live. And this was conveniently confirmed today. What happened to the video guy? This was conveniently confirmed today by the Secretary of State. Let's listen in again.
Some discussion about China and what they knew and when they knew it. And I've been very critical. We need to know immediately. The world is entitled to know. The Chinese government was the first to know of this risk to the world. And that puts a special obligation to make sure that data gets to our scientists, our professionals. This is not about retribution. This matters going forward. We're in a live exercise here to get this right. Some discussion about China.
We're in a live exercise here. What an interesting way to phrase it.
We're in a live exercise here.
A live exercise. So it's like they were having an exercise and then it went live. Now, most people would just consider this like a disaster, some kind of, freak occurrence, perhaps a bioweapon, right? Some kind of preemptive attack. But no, the way they've described it here is an exercise that went live.
We're in a live exercise here.
We're in a live exercise, not a disaster, not, the end of the world, not the bioweapon released. We're in a live exercise. He wants you to know. They want you to know now. They got to brag about it a little bit. And, just a couple days ago, the president during one of these press conferences was like, oh yeah, we shut down, the flights from China. We're number one. We did it first and it was perfect. And we even did it ahead of schedule. And it's like, schedule? What schedule are you on? The Project Zypher schedule, right? The Agenda 21 schedule, the Georgia Guidestone schedule. And I think that's really the most important point to focus on during this whole developing story. Yes, you want them to succeed. Yes, you want them to win. Yes, you want them to save America. But it's like, they're firefighters that have started the fire so that they can have a job. That's exactly who these people are. It's the typical problem, reaction, solution. And look, at the end of the day, if this goes down right, it's going to be all the libtards in the big cities that get liquidated, and the rest of us are going to be fine. And we're going to be like, yeah, who's the Russian now, bitches? You know what I mean? And, that could be okay. I think, at the end of the day, we could all agree that that would be what was needed in this country, long overdue. And look, it's sad, but true. You look at the television today, it's 24/7 product placement for Luciferian ideologies. They're out there just, raping and molesting children everywhere in the schools, the Boy Scouts, the daycares, you name it. They're out there, trying to hunt down your child. Even in cyberspace, whatever video game that's, linked on a network. These, cult members are out there to do the creepy Biden. You know what I mean? What is up with the video guy?
Yeah, there's just not enough time to kind of dwell on the fact that so many people are dying. It's just an endless stream of people coming in. As soon as we have a free bed, we have a new patient coming in who needs critical care. Once we get a patient in the ICU, I haven't seen any yet being weaned off the ventilator. So it's been a couple of weeks now. The patients we've had for the longest, nearly 20 days we've had, and all of them still depend on mechanic ventilation. Now we have people in their 50s. So most of our patients are in their 50s. It's just been a build-up of, dead people.
So that was the nurse from Italy talking about what it's like in the ICUs over there. And this is your future if you comply with the goon squads and the like. And look, I mean, it is what it is out there. We better just get back to the news, because otherwise people are just gonna, wet themselves and the like. So what's the latest? Before the virus outbreak, a cascade of warnings that went unheeded. This is like another mainstream news article. It's coming out now. Look, they could have averted this. It was like 9/11 all over again. The planes are 20 miles out. The planes are 10 miles out. Do the orders still stand? Of course the orders still stand. You've seen the Georgia Guidestones. You're still getting the fluoride in your tap water, right? You're still eating the GMOs, yeah? Still got them vaccines running through your veins, yep. Still getting irradiated by the death towers, yep. The orders still stand, yeah. The virus in your town? Yep. Now, you might be asking yourself, was there anything you could have done to have averted such a disaster? How many years has it been since 9/11? We're going on literally 19 years. 18 and a half, right? We've had 18 and a half years, 15 years, for most people. Probably took a few years for most people to wake up. Let's just say 10, 15 years. We've had 10 to 15 years to stop these people. In 2016, when the WikiLeaks came out, and they were all exposed as cult members, raping children, the works, right? Creepy Biden, Epstein, Comet Pizza, the works, right? All of the artwork, the works. It all came out. Seth Rich, just everything. What did people do? They're like, oh yeah, I think, yeah, they did it, yeah. And that's it. They're like, yeah, they just nodded and just accepted, their fate. Right? Over and over again, complacency, over and over again. Why did this virus come for Sodom and Gomorrah? Because regular people didn't do anything. And we just watched the entire system melt down, and it's going to take many of them, with it. What else can you say, ladies and gentlemen? Probably a lot more, but we'll save that for the rest of the story. Moving on with the news. Oh, what's this? Senators dumped up to $1.7 million in stock. No, just one senator. One senator dumped $1.7 million in stock on February 13th after reassuring the public about coronavirus preparedness. So they were getting the secret reports in mid-February. They sold all of their stock. They fire sold everything. They're like, you saw, a lot of VIPs like stepping down from their, jobs, a lot of, well-known actors or hosts for shows and the like, Judge Judy, many others. They're like, oh no, we're done. Yeah, I'm retiring. You saw a bunch of them all say that. I'm retiring. They knew what was coming. Everybody knew what was coming. All you had to do was look at the videos that were happening and, that were coming out of China. Videos like these where people are being liquidated, body bags everywhere, everything shut down. This wasn't the flu. Does this look like the flu? Does this look like the flu to you? Is this the flu or is this the flu? You know what I mean? And you can't imagine that, our intelligence, community didn't see these videos. Of course they saw these videos. Millions of people saw these videos. And yet, the mainstream television, the politicians included, were pretending like this wasn't happening. Like this wasn't our future. What are they hiding? Oh, they're hiding, the final solution from you. But they're selling their stocks. The VIPs are heading for their bunkers. And, in the meanwhile, the mainstream media is just pumping out this, this crap like a pump and dump scheme. You know what it is? You know what I mean? That's exactly what it is. They pump you up with the television and their politicians, and then, they're dumping, on the back end and running off with the money. But this is how disingenuous, these people are. They're like, yeah, don't worry. No, it's a hoax. And they're all like, sell. That's what really happened. And it's not just this guy, and it's not just another girl. They were probably all doing that. Trump asked states to hide their unemployment claim data. That's actually a real story. You might think that's fake, but yeah, they're like, no, don't tell the public. Quite literally, don't tell the public how many people lost their jobs in the last week. We don't need that right now. It's just like, why they didn't test people. They're like, oh, no, don't tell anybody. We don't need them to, figure out what's going on just yet. We got to sell all our shit first. And we were telling people that, weeks and weeks ago. I'm not sure how many of you out there have been watching this series since the lockdown, but it's been quite a ride. Usually we cover, all sorts of other things. Death towers, geoengineering, Gladio B events, what the occult are up to. But, here it was, it's been all Wuhan supervirus for the last 2 months. Immediately after the lockdown, it was like, something like a bioweapon escaped the lab happened kind of thing. This is a Fukushima, and they just haven't been telling people yet. But the more we started digging, the worse it started looking. Mass liquidation, Project Cypher, and we've got, sources, that are telling us that certain communities were made aware of this, at least back in January, and they were telling their employees, buy your shit, get ready, the reset is coming, basically. So this has been widely understood and appreciated in many circles for months. And yet, the television is like, what virus? This is a hoax. Come to the rally, And it's criminal. Because you see pictures of old people or even, other people, showing up at the grocery store and there's nothing left. And if they're lucky enough to make it in there, they're going to spend all day trying to get stuff that they can't get anymore. And it's only going to get worse. Look, I feel like we have to go round and round on this over and over again because we've all been put in a real bad position thanks to this new world order in every country. These people that come on television, they're like, we got to tighten the screws and we got to, lock you down for your protection. These are the people that let this virus in, lied to you for months, telling you everything's okay. They basically, cut everybody off at the kneecaps by making sure all the supplies were depleted. The masks and other protective equipment and the like. They did everything they could to royally screw, people around the world. And this is just the beginning of the nightmare. And watch them come out, trying to be the hero as they kill even more. And I think people, have an obligation to, act responsibly in the sense that, look, the virus is out there. You don't want to contaminate other people or make this spread. But you have to know that pretty much everybody's been contaminated already. And they're just going to use, people being suspected of being contaminated or fictitious numbers to drive up the need for more aggressive measures. Look, everybody's been infected already. It doesn't matter if you're out there talking to people, going to the grocery store, really, or going out. Everybody's infected. The problem with this virus, however, is that community virus load makes the symptoms worse. And the higher the virus load in the community, the higher the virus load in the individual, and the more symptoms show up. So all the way until, very severe kind of symptoms. But essentially the idea of trying to quarantine people now or lock people down now is useless. I mean, that was something that they could have done a month ago, 2 months ago, to save like half the people or 2/3 of the people. But now everybody's pretty much infected. And, all the numbers that they're going to come out with are going to make it seem like, only a small amount of people are infected. And if we lock everybody down now, then we can save a bunch of you. But, the opposite is pretty much the case. Everybody's been infected, and locking everybody down is just going to make everything worse because now the community virus load isn't the entire city, it's your house. And, it just builds up exponentially from there. They're going to bury everybody alive. Have no doubt about it. What's this? What is this? What? is this video game?
Sur le terrain, sur
Oh.
instruction, nous demandons que vous retiriez les masques de protection. Appel général de TNZ1, je réitère sur
Okay, so this is actually a Parisian cop that filmed the orders from the government telling all police officers to remove their personal protection equipment. And, you know, citizens were getting jealous. They're like, how come the cops have masks and we don't have masks? So the cops were ordered to take off all of their masks. So, you know, it's a nightmare out there, to say the least. You know, they want to exterminate everyone, including the cops and including, you know, the military. They're going to exterminate them too. We're already getting reports that many have been infected. So, you know, they don't need an army. What they need is for everybody to die. What is this? More, you know, more accounts from police officers, you know, describing the situation. This was an interesting video from Russia, and you know they took it seriously day one. I mean, obviously China's their neighbors, so you know they saw what was happening right next door, and they took things, you know, much more seriously, and they've got the numbers to prove it. But you know, it is a sad situation. Streets of Paris looking like Wuhan now. It's the beginning of the lockdown, and little by little it'll get worse and worse. What's this? Yeah, not enough supplies. Everything is falling apart, you know, as planned. Stocks, you know, masks were not reordered and the like. Stocks were allowed to be depleted. It's just sabotage. You know, and that way there's just no way anybody can really be, you know, saved for the most part. Spain reports 1,900 new cases and 200 new deaths, raising their totals to 20,000. And again, you know, they've got a limit of how many people they can test per day. But, you know, what we're hearing is that virtually everybody's been infected with this virus already. And this isn't just like the flu. You know, this would be different if it was just like the flu and you just, you know, you got a cold and then it was over. But in fact, the symptoms that you get initially, the acute infection, is just the beginning. It's just phase one of the disease. And, you know, then it becomes systemic and it starts attacking the organs, and, you know, it just keeps working you until it eventually will get you. It's like, you know, the ultimate growth hormone, if you will, and it just keeps growing. So wait until they, you know, until they release that information and watch people freak out. Yeah, it must be real difficult right now working in the hospitals, working, you know, on the front lines. And they're all asking people to stay home. And again, this is under the premise as if there were people that aren't infected already. And chances are, you know, having people just stay home and power clean and, you know, breathe in, you know, used air all day will make this situation much, much worse. And I think there's a reason why the bodies started dropping after the lockdown more than before the lockdown. And, you know, it has to do with basically people just sitting at home, not being able to get fresh air and the like. But what else we got in the news? There's a dire shortage of masks around the country, N95 especially. And, you know, more so in the big cities than, you know, perhaps the mid-sized towns and the like. But it's certainly a bad situation. And, you know, at the beginning of this catastrophe, you know, it looked like the end of the world in China for like a month, 2 months before it started, you know, ramping up in other countries. And so people were donating their supplies. They thought, oh, this is just a China thing, right? So yeah, let's send them all of our masks and we'll send them all of our supplies. And that's what we did. And now we're left with like hardly anything. And we're already getting reports of hospitals being saturated. You know, they're running out of masks and other equipment, and it's already grim. And this is like, you know, just the beginning. So, you know, having done more, you know, 2 months ago would have made all the difference today. And I think, you know, until you see this really start eating up your town, you won't appreciate, you know, those words. But they could have, you know, they could have saved millions of lives by acting sooner, by acting when, you know, everybody was sounding the alarms. So instead they were just laughing at everybody like this is a hoax and, you know, and the like. And so, yeah, they obviously are going to have a lot of blood on their hands. And, you know, when this is all said and done, they're going to look worse than the 9/11 administration. Much, much worse. So, yeah, obviously we should be expecting the troops, you know, sometime soon. When the police shall have, when the people shall have nothing more to eat, they will eat the rich, ladies and gentlemen. Fargo Police Department outfits officers with gear to fight the virus. It looks like they're going to Mars, bitches, right there in Fargo. Coronavirus crisis at UK's nuclear submarine base as 20 staff show, you know, that they're positive. And I'm not sure how many people remember this, you know, at least a month ago or so. We were like, you know, send all the subs into the deep, you know, DEFCON 1, get ready. This is a preemptive attack. And now everything's been compromised. So it's a ticking time bomb. If they're going to nuke the Chinese, it better be soon. There might not be anybody left to do it. And that makes the situation a million times more dangerous, ladies and gentlemen. What to do? What can we do? And, you know, that is another question, ladies and gentlemen. But if you don't want to end up like these people, you better not go to the FEMA camps, if you know what I mean. And this is the condemnation. That light is come into the world, and men loved darkness rather than light, because their deeds were evil. For everyone that doeth evil hateth the light, neither cometh to the light, lest his deeds should be reproved. But he that doeth truth cometh to the light, that his deeds may be made manifest, that they are wrought in God. And so, ladies and gentlemen, you can tell them by their fruits. You have to understand what that means. But, yeah, all of these people on television are part of this demonic they live control system. And, you know, you should never forget that. In any case, these people are not going to save you. They've already condemned you. Now the question is, will you survive? And that, ladies and gentlemen, is up to you. If you're listening to this, you are the resistance.